Everyone. Welcome to the Interim title show. Today, we're going to break down my pound for pound list. If you follow the Interim title show's Instagram page at Interim title show, you'll see that I posted a graphic ranking my top 15 pound for pound fighters in the UFC. So I'm going to break down this list for you and discuss why each fighter is ranked where they are currently at. So, number 15, I have Alexander Volkanovski. Once the pound for pound number one fighter in the world, Alexander Volkanovski has lost three of his last four fights. He probably has the biggest skid out of any of these fighters on this list currently, suffering multiple losses in his over the last few years to Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. Obviously, those are two guys on the pound for pound list themselves, very talented fighters. But Volkanovski just might not be at that championship level anymore. However, he is still the most accomplished champion in the featherweight division. And in my opinion, that is the best division in the UFC right now. But Alexander Volkanovski still has six ranked wins against people currently in that featherweight division. So he is still, the man. It's just Ilia Topuria has now kind of surpassed him, and Volk may no longer be a championship caliber fighter. We don't know for sure, however. But at the time of Volk's demise to Ilia Topuria at UFC 298, there were questions surrounding whether Volkanovski just took that fight on such short notice and just had too short of a turnaround in his match with Islam Makhachev, where brutally got knocked out by a vicious head kick and turned around and fought Ilia Topuria again because he took that Makhachev fight on such short notice. And Volk was kind of a victim of himself, and he kind of brought his own demise in that regard of just having such a short turnaround between those fights. But Topuria is very skilled. He knocked out Max Holloway. I think Topuria is a generational talent. Knocking out Max Holloway, no one was able to do that before. Not Dustin Poirier, not Justin Gaethje, not Conor McGregor. Uh, you know, Not Alexander Volkanovski in their three fights. So Ilia Topuria is the real deal. He is the man in that division. But UFC 314 in April in Miami, it appears we are going to have a rematch from Alexander Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria. How will this fight play out? Will Alexander Volkanovski get his revenge? It's hard to see a path for victory for him. So I think if he loses his next fight, he's going to be off this pound for pound list. Uh, but Alexander Volkanovski is still one of the greatest fighters to ever fight in the UFC. Uh, but the legend, will it come to an end at UFC 314? You know, who knows? Maybe Volk can add to his legacy a little further and get that title back. We're gonna find out. I'm really excited for UFC 314. It's not official yet, but Bo Nickel has said that he knows for certain that Topuria and Volkanovski will headline UFC 314 in Miami, and I am very excited for that fight. At number 14, we have Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards, and my opinion, as he was champion of that welterweight division, top five pound for pound fighter in the world in the rankings. I always found Leon Edwards to be a little bit overrated as a champion. He wasn't an active champion. His best victory of his career is going to be winning the belt against Kamaru Usman, that amazing head kick and that comeback, fight. And then, he won that third fight in a decisive fashion. But Leon Edwards just wasn't active enough for me. I don't think Colby Covington was particularly great title defense. I don't think Colby Covington was at the level he was as a formidable title challenger as he was to Kamaru Usman several years ago. Colby Covington was once a really, really good fighter. I won't call him a great fighter. He did squander some opportunities throughout his career, but Colby Covington was a formidable title challenger. Love him or hate him, but he wasn't when he fought Leon Edwards. I think Leon Edwards has some good takedown defense. I think he's a smooth striker. I don't think he has a lot of power. I think Bilal Muhammad kind of exposed him at UFC 304. Another thing about Leon Edwards, because he was champion for so long. Last year, he was the longest reigning UFC champion. but he just had two title defenses. But Leon Edwards only has four wins over ranked opponents. That's just not a whole lot in terms of the pound for pound fighters on this list. That's about the same as Ilia Topuria has in a very short time in the UFC. Uh, and Bilal Muhammad has more than that already. The only champion who has less is Dricus Du Plessis in the middleweight division. But I always just found Leon Edwards to be a little bit overrated myself. Very talented fighter, but I just didn't see a top 3 to 5 pound for pound fighter like many were calling him heading into UFC 304. At number 13, I have Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley has the fewest wins over ranked opponents of anyone on this list. But Sean O'Malley is a former champion in the bantamweight division, which is a very good division. He did beat Aljamain Sterling, who I think very highly of. He just kind of misses this list, along with Mosfar Evelev. But Aljamain Sterling was a fantastic champion at bantamweight, three title defenses, tied for the most with Dominic Cruz. In the conversation for greatest bantamweight of all time. But Sean O'Malley, he did lose to Merab Dvalishvili. I think he's realistically the third best fighter in his division, but Umar Nurmagomedov hasn't really had that championship status that Sean O'Malley has. Those two fighting would be an awesome fight. I would still love to see Sean O'Malley fight. He's still one of my favorite fighters to watch in the sport, but I don't know how elite he truly is. And I think that's just because of he was kind of fast tracked to that title shot, and he did show in at UFC 306 that his grappling is not up to par with Merab Dvalishvili. Not many people have elite grappling like Merab Dvalishvili, but Merab kind of exposed him, gave him a hard time, and kind of froze him in the stand-up game with that constant movement and making him think about the takedowns all the time. So Sean O'Malley, talented fighter, the biggest star on this pound for pound list, but I just don't think he is as elite as his name recognition would suggest. I love Sean O'Malley. I hope he gets back in the win column. I hope he gets back in the title fights. It does seem like he will fight Merab Dvalishvili. I don't think he necessarily deserves that next title shot. He doesn't deserve the automatic rematch that Volkanovski is getting with Ilia Topuria because he's not that legendary champion that Alexander Volkanovski was. He only had one title defense against Chito Vera. That was a lopsided fight. Chito Vera has gone on to lose to Figueiredo, and he's out of the top five. That was kind of a dumb title defense. It's sold. Sean O'Malley sells. You can have anyone in front of Sean O'Malley. That fight's going to sell. But I don't think he deserves that shot just yet. But he is the money fight from Rob Dvalishvili in the bantamweight division. So I do think they will do that at some point in 2025 when O'Malley returns from his injury. At number 12, I have Charles Oliveira. And that's pretty high for Charles Oliveira on a lot of pound for pound lists in 2025. But the thing about pound for pound list is, it's a mythical list, right? It's all hypotheticals of if these guys were all the same weight, uh, you know, just based on skills, who's the best of the best. And Charles Oliveira is one of the greatest of all time. Most submission wins in UFC history, most finishes in UFC history. He's like second in wins. Charles Oliveira's jiu-jitsu is incredible. He's really one of the craftier fighters in the UFC history. I think he's the craftiest fighter in the UFC still. Charles Oliveira is a dangerous man, and I think his striking is really good. I think his offensive grappling has really improved. I think we saw that with Michael Chandler at UFC 309. Charles Oliveira looked fantastic at UFC 309, and the striking is still dangerous. I still think you could say he is the hardest hitter in the lightweight division. It was Justin Gaethje for a very long time. I think he hits harder than Justin Gaethje. I think we saw that in their fight when Charles Oliveira was champion. He's had a couple losses to Arman Tsarukyan and Islam Makhachev in the recent years, but Charles Oliveira is an unbelievable fighter, and I think he can go up against anybody in the UFC's on the UFC roster. So Charles Oliveira, in terms of skill, is just one of the best. And I would love to see Charles Oliveira fight at welterweight. I think he's probably better off there. But with Islam Makhachev leaving and heading to welterweight, I think Charles Oliveira at lightweight is going to be a contender for that belt again. I still favor him against Arman Tsarukyan. I think in a 5-round fight, Charles Oliveira would submit Arman Tsarukyan, and I'm excited to see if Charles Oliveira can regain that belt uh, before his career ends. But heading into number 11, it seems like it's going to be his next fight's going to be with Max Holloway for the BMF belt. That's been talked about recently. That would be a rematch. They fought when they were at featherweight. Charles Oliveira ended up having to not continue in that fight due to an injury. But Max Holloway is still the BMF champion. He's still the title holder in the UFC. I love the BMF belt. I consider it a legitimate belt. Not everyone does. But Max Holloway's still a UFC champion. Not technically by lineage. That would be Ilia Topuria as the BMF champion, but the BMF belt was not on the line in that fight. But Max Holloway is still a BMF. Max Holloway is still one of the greatest of all time. He has 7 wins over ranked opponents at featherweight and lightweight. He beat Justin Gaethje, who's a top 5 lightweight. And that's not Max Holloway's division over his career. He's been a featherweight. So Max Holloway having wins multiple divisions carries a lot of weight for me. Being a title holder in the BMF division holds a lot of weight for me. And that just has him a little bit ahead of Volk for now. He is coming off a loss to Poirier as well. Both of them have been knocked out by Ilia Topuria in 2024. That's why Topuria was my fighter of the year for 2024, because how impressive that is. But Max Holloway is still one of the best boxers in the UFC. I think Ilia Topuria has surpassed him as the best boxer in the UFC. I don't think I've seen a boxer in the UFC as technically gifted as Ilia Topuria, but Max Holloway, what more can we say about Max Holloway? Everyone knows that Max Holloway is a BMF, and Max Holloway is one of the most exciting fighters in the history of the sport, one of the greatest of all time. And he's just ahead of Volk for now, given Volk having multiple losses to Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria losing 3 of the last 4. But Max Holloway is an amazing fighter himself, and he is number 11 for having wins multiple divisions that Volkanovski doesn't have, and being a current title holder in the BMF belt. Uh, Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. That's the fight that I want to see in 2025. Probably more than anything, that's not John Jones and Tom Aspinall. Now we're going to head to number 10, Khamzat Chimaev. He has 4 wins over ranked opponents. Khamzat Chimaev is not a UFC champion. He's not a former UFC champion. He is the only person on this list who has never held the UFC championship belt. But Khamzat Chimaev, like I said, he is one of the most skilled fighters in the UFC. And I said earlier that a big reason why Charles is so high on this list is because in terms of skill, I think Charles Oliveira can go up against any one of these guys. Again, this is all hypothetical. If these guys were the same weight, based on skill, who would win these fights? How many guys do you think Khamzat Chimaev would lose to in the UFC? Is there anyone that is ranked behind him that you think he wouldn't beat? Do you think he wouldn't beat Volkanovski? You don't think he would beat Leon Edwards, Sean O'Malley, Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway? Oliveira probably has the best shot against him out of those guys on that list. But Khamzat Chimaev's grappling is just one of the best we've seen in the UFC. He's not active enough, but I think he is going to be a champion in 2025 if he can get into the octagon. That's always an issue with Khamzat. But I think he would beat Dricus du Plessis. I think he would demolish Sean Strickland. If depending on how UFC 312 plays out in the next couple weeks here. But Khamzat Chimaev, in terms of skill, I think is one of the best in the UFC. The reason why he is not ranked higher is because everyone ahead of him has a belt and he does not. Running into number 9, we have the only interim champion on this list, Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall has actually, had more ranked victories than John Jones has among the heavyweight division. I still view Tom Aspinall as the real heavyweight champion, but Tom Aspinall, if he beats John Jones, he's going to skyrocket onto this into probably the top 5 for me, if not the top 3. But Tom Aspinall is a really gifted fighter. That speed, that power. You know, I think he is a phenomenal fighter. And no one's able to handle Tom Aspinall's power in the heavyweight division. But Tom Aspinall is not the undisputed champion, so he's not. That's the reason why he's not ranked a little bit higher on this list. But no one's able to handle that speed and power among the biggest guys in the UFC. So I would say that Tom Aspinall probably is the most powerful puncher in the UFC, even though we credit Alex Pereira for being so. I would say it is Tom Aspinall because not many people have lasted, more than two, three punches, you know, for Tom Aspinall. No able to take a lot of damage from Tom, and Tom is one of the best in the world, and I'm excited to see him fight John Jones. I hope that takes place. We'll see, but Tom Aspinall is ranked number 9 for me. Number 8 would be Driskis Du Plessis. I think he's probably the weakest of the UFC champions. No offense to DDP. I really admire his grit, his determination, his durability. I think durability is his best asset. Then his wrestling is very very good as well. I think he is Kazmat's toughest matchup at middleweight. But DDP, with Strickland, that was a very close fight. I that could have gone either way. That was a coin flip fight. We'll see how it goes the second time around at UFC 312. Um, but DDP also doesn't have a lot of the ranked wins that a lot of these guys on the list have. I believe he only has 3. He may have more. I could be wrong, but DDP is not someone that I think is as elite as these other champions. He has some technical issues, particularly in the striking aspect of his game. He gets hit a lot. And he's just not as technically sound as the other fighters who are ranked ahead of him. But still, he gets the job done. He finds ways to win. He may be proving me wrong over the next year or so here. But GDP is ranked number 8 for me. Heading on to number 7, I have Bilal Muhammad. I really like Bilal Muhammad. I know he's considered a boring fighter. He gets booed a lot. Bilal Muhammad hate is very popular among UFC fans, but Bilal Muhammad is a high volume striker. He's very similar to Marab in a lot of ways. And his grappling is very good. I just don't think he has that cardio and the constant pressure that Marab does. But Bilal Muhammad's a really good fighter, and we saw that UFC 304 against Leon Edwards. And I would like to see that fight again if Leon can get some wins. I don't know how long Bilal is going to be champion. I think Shavkat Rakhmonov is still a major issue for him. I know Shavkat's stock kind of went down following his UFC 310 performance against Ian Machado Gary, but Shavkat 19-0 with 18 finishes. That was his first time he didn't finish a fighter. He's finished Stephen Thompson, Vicente Luque. Shavkat is a dangerous, dangerous fighter. Jeff Neal. Shavkat is a great fighter, and I think that's going to be a formidable challenge for Bilal Muhammad. He's also just not as active as I would like him to be, but he has 5 wins over current ranked opponents in the UFC. So Bilal Muhammad is still a very good champion, and he was a very good contender, and he's a good resume. But there's just I think Bilal Muhammad being ranked number 7 just shows you how good the rest of this list is and how talented the fighters on the UFC roster are right now. So for number 6, I have Ilia Topuria. I know he's ranked higher on a lot of people's pound for pound list. He was my fighter of the year for 2024. He does have 4 wins over current ranked opponents. Whether they're ranked featherweight, lightweight, all they have to be is ranked for me to count this here. But Ilia Topuria, in terms of skill, I think he's probably him and Islam Makhachev are the 2 most skilled fighters in the UFC right now. But it's just in terms of accomplishments, I think there are guys who I have ahead of him at this time. But Ilia Topuria, I think, is going to be the face of this company by the end of the year. It's Sean O'Malley right now still. I think it'll be Ilia Topuria by the end of 2025. He's a global superstar. He is elite wrestling. He is the best boxer I have ever seen in the UFC, especially from a technical standpoint. I think he also would have the best power in the UFC as well. And I love Ilia Topuria as a fighter. I think he is one of the best we have ever seen. I think he's a generational talent. But I think the next five guys here, I think they all have a case for number one. Um, and I just don't think Ilia Topuria has accomplished enough overall throughout his career just yet in comparison to these other guys on this list. But we're going to head to number five right now, and it's going to be Alex Poatan Pereira. Alex Pereira is one of three fighters in the UFC with at least three title defenses. It is Islam Makhachev, Alex Pereira, and Pantoja. And Alex Pereira has looked fantastic in his recent fights. In 2024, I thought he was unbelievable. He has the record for the fastest to three title defenses in UFC history. He just did that over from April to September. And he is a phenomenal fighter. Uh, his grappling isn't as good as some of these guys in the UFC. The reason why he's not ranked higher is because everyone ahead of him, I think, has better grappling. And if they all had the same weight, I think he would lose to these guys. Uh, and that's the reason why he's ranked at number five. But Alex Pereira has seven victories over ranked opponents, whether they're at middleweight or at light heavyweight. He's beaten four former champions in Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, Yuri Prohaska, and Jamal Hill, uh, and Jan Blankwitz. So that's actually five. Alex Pereira has quite a resume. It's not his fault that there's really not uh, anyone who's a particularly great wrestler in those middleweight and light heavyweight divisions that he has fought in. But Alex Pereira is a terrific fighter, and I I mean, he's one of the faces of the company right now. And I'm looking forward to see him take on Ankalaev at UFC 313 in March. I predicted him to win that fight. We'll see if that changes from now until March. But Alex Pereira, he's one of the best in the UFC. He is ranked number five, and again, that just shows you how good I think the next four guys are. Because at number four, technically, I have a tie here for uh, the third ranked fighter in the UFC. But I have Merab Dvalishvili here as my next ranked fighter. Four champions he has defeated: Henry Cejudo, Sean O'Malley, Peter Yan, Jose Aldo. He just defeated the undefeated at the time, Umar Nurmagomedov. He is the first person to beat Nurmagomedov. Although I think Paul Hughes was the second, but check out my other video on Paul Hughes to find out why I believe that. But Rob Dvalishvili is unbelievable. That cardio that he has, that pressure he puts on, I think Rob Dvalishvili has a case for being the best pound for pound fighter in the world. And that is because of the constant pressure that he puts on. And I think that constant pressure, if these guys were the same weight in this mythical matchup that will never take place, if these guys had the same attributes, I think Merab Dvalishvili would give Islam Makhachev tons of trouble because of that constant pressure. And I think he could take Islam Makhachev to deep waters like he did with Umar Nurmagomedov. Merab Dvalishvili is a fantastic fighter. He's unbelievable to watch. He is so highly skilled. He is so unorthodox. He is a puzzle for these guys to figure out. We saw how he froze Sean O'Malley, and we saw that he is a gritty fighter with the heart of a champion. And we saw that against Umar Nurmagomedov at UFC 311. It was a fantastic performance, and Merab has really elevated himself into star status. He was considered a boring fighter a year ago, and Merab has really turned things around and has built himself as a star and arguably the greatest bantamweight of all time. And that is a fantastic division. So Merab Dvalishvili is tied for third with the flyweight champion Alex Pantoja. Pantoja is unbelievable. I think Pantoja has a case for pound number one as well. We talked about how Alexander Volkanovski has six wins over ranked opponents. Alex Pereira has seven. Bilal Muhammad five. Merab has five. Pantoja has 10. It is unbelievable how many guys in the flyweight division he has beaten. He has cleared out his division, and he's just doing laps around that division right now. And he is a case for being the best flyweight of all time. And I think, you know, Pantoja is, the most underrated fighter in the UFC. The fact that he's ranked number nine on the UFC pound for pound rankings is the biggest problem with the UFC pound for pound rankings. I know Dana was all upset that John Jones wasn't number one. But, Pantoja, being number nine, that's the biggest problem. That is a joke. Look at what he's done to that division. That's a competitive division as well. There's a whole video I have on the channel about Alex Pantoja being the most underrated fighter in the UFC, being the most dominant champion in the UFC. I think he is the most dominant champion in the UFC. I think what he's done to that division, cleaning it out, I don't think anyone else in the UFC has done that. Not Makhachev, not John Jones, not Volk, not Poirier. Pantoja's beaten everyone. And he beat them on the way up. He beat them as champion. He has three title defenses. He wants to defend the belt for the fourth time in April. And, Pantoja is realistically the second most active champion in the UFC besides Alex Pereira. So Pantoja deserves way more credit than he gets. He is a fantastic fighter. Personally, one of my all-time favorite fighters. Him and Marab are probably two of my favorite champions to watch right now. Pantoja, deserves much more credit, and it was really hard not to rank him higher on this list. As a huge fan of his and someone who, is one of the biggest Pantoja supporters you will find in all of the MMA fan base. But number two goes to John Jones. Now, John Jones has one win over a ranked fighter right now, and it is Cyril Gane. John Jones isn't very active, but this is John Jones being number two is a testament to John Jones' career, as I believe that he is a top four fighter in the history of the UFC. He's on my Mount Rushmore. It's GSP, John Jones, Khabib Nurmagomedov, and Demetrius Johnson. And I think any of these guys have in order to be ahead of the other. But I think John Jones, what he's done for his career, still deserves a place on this list. Uh, you know, Love or hate John Jones, for what he's done in his career, for what he's accomplished, he is among the greatest of all time. So it's hard to rank anyone ahead of him. And that just goes to show you how good Islam Makhachev is. The only UFC champion to have four title defenses. He has been phenomenal throughout his championship reign. He's defeated Volkanovski twice. He defeated Charles Oliveira to get the belt. He defeated Dustin Poirier in a really gritty fight. I think that won over a lot of fans, in that performance at UFC 302. Islam Makhachev took care of business against Money Moicano at UFC 311. I think he's going to move up to welterweight. I think he could, I think his grappling is so good that he could beat a lot of these guys at higher weight classes. I think he would be the welterweight champion the second he moves up there. I favor him amongst anyone, the best of the best in that division. I think we see him go for that champ status in 2025 and kind of surpassing Khabib Nurmagomedov as the greatest fighter from Dagestan. But Islam Makhachev is my number one at this time. Him and John Jones are neck and neck. Really, those top six are really close together with each other. Like I mentioned, I have Pantoja and Marab tied. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below of your pound for pound fighters list. Let me know if you disagree with any of my opinions here. These are all opinions. This is a very subjective list. Pound for pound lists are. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and be sure to follow the Interim Title Show on Instagram at Interim Title Show. Thank you for watching.